Hello, and welcome to the Introduction to the Early Start program. The information included in this presentation is for educational purposes only and is not meant to be interpreted as a legitimate source of legal authority regarding the Early Start program. This presentation only touches on some of the aspects of the Early Start program and is not meant to be all-inclusive. The purpose of this presentation is to help parents better understand the Early Start program and some of its core components. The Early Intervention Program for Infants and Toddlers with Disabilities was established by Congress in 1986. It is traditionally known as Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA Part C. However, it is more commonly referred to as the Early Start Program. The Early Start Program is a federal grant program, which means that in order for a state to receive federal funds, they must assure that early intervention services will be available for children and their families who qualify between the ages of 0 and 2. So what pieces of law make up the Early Start program here in California? Well, we have Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We have the Code of Federal Regulations, which start at Part 303. We have the California Early Intervention Services Act, and we have parts of Title V and Title 17 of the California Code of Regulations. If you're interested in reading these pieces of legislation, please go to coastaladvocacy.com, click on the Learning Center, and from there you should be able to navigate yourself to links that will take you to directly to copies of these pieces of legislation. An important part of understanding the Early Start program is to look to the congressional findings found at the beginning of IDEA Part C. Congress finds that there is an urgent and substantial need, 1, to enhance the development of infants and toddlers with disabilities and to minimize their potential for developmental delay, and to recognize the significant brain development that occurs during a child's first 3 years of life. 2, to reduce the educational cost to our society, including our nation's schools, by minimizing the need for special education and related services after infants and toddlers with disabilities reach school age. 3, to minimize the likelihood of institutionalization of individuals with disabilities and maximize the potential for their independently living in society. And 4, to enhance the capacity of families to meet the special needs of their infants and toddlers with disabilities. Here we've listed a number of studies that show the importance of early intervention and the cost effectiveness of early intervention. If you are more interested in learning more about these studies, we have put the names of the studies up so you can Google them, and from there you should be able to find lots of information. So let's start by talking about the eligibility for the Early Start program. At this time in California, there are 2 ways a child can qualify for Early Start services. 1, a child can qualify due to a developmental delay, and 2, a child can qualify due to an established risk. So let's first look at a developmental delay. So a child must have a developmental delay in one of the following 5 areas: cognitive development, physical and motor development, which includes vision and hearing, communication development, social or emotional development, and adaptive development. So if a child must have a developmental delay in one of those areas, then that begs the question, what is a developmental delay? And according to statute, a developmental delay is a delay of 33% or more in one area of development prior to the age of 24 months. After 24 months, a child must have a delay of 50% in one area of development or a delay of 33% in two or more areas of development. Most children who qualify for Early Start services will be served by their local regional center. However, children who have solely a hearing impairment, visual impairment, severe orthopedic impairment, or a combination will be served by the local education agency, which is normally your local county office of education. This is referred to as a solely low incident disability. Okay, now let's look at the established risk. Established risks are conditions of known etiology or conditions with established harmful developmental consequences. If the delay is not evident at the time of the diagnosis, then the condition must have a high probability of leading to a developmental delay. And examples of established risks would be Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autistic disorder, and so on. Now let's look at the Individualized Family Service Plan, also known as the IFSP. Once the regional center or local education agency receives a referral for Early Start services, they have 45 days to complete the eligibility evaluation and hold an individualized family service plan meeting with the family. During this meeting, the parent, service coordinator, and service providers will develop an IFSP to meet the specific needs of the child who qualified for services. This is an important document that all parents should participate in developing. So what should be included in your child's IFSP? Well, the IFSP should be in writing, and it should contain 1, a statement of your child's present levels of development in those 5 areas that we spoke of before. So again, that would be physical development, cognitive development, communication, social or emotional development, and adaptive development. And all of that should be based on objective criteria. 2, there should be a statement of the family's resources, priorities, and concerns relating to enhancing the development of the family's infant or toddler with a disability. And usually in an IFSP, there's always a section where the service coordinator or one of the providers will ask, what are the concerns of the family? What are the priorities of the family? And 3, there should be a statement of the measurable results or outcomes expected to be achieved for the infant or toddler and the family, including pre-literacy and language skills, as developmentally appropriate for the child, and the criteria, procedures, and timelines used to determine the degree to which progress towards achieving the results or outcomes is being made, and whether modifications or revisions of the results or outcomes or services are necessary. Plainly stated, what this means is that every IFSP must include a set of goals which are measurable and help determine whether the services being provided are appropriate and whether changes need to be made to the plan if the child is not meeting the goals. 4, there should be a statement of specific early intervention services based on peer-reviewed research to the extent practicable, necessary to meet the unique needs of the infant or toddler and the family, including the frequency, intensity, and method of delivering services. So there should be a statement of the specific services that the child is being provided and how often that service is being provided. Fifth, there should be a statement of natural environments in which early intervention services will appropriately be provided, including a justification of the extent, if any, to which the services will not be provided in a natural environment. Natural environment is an environment where you also find typically developing children. Okay, most commonly, this is a person's home, but there's lots of different examples of natural environment. So there must be a statement of the natural environment in which all the early intervention services are being provided, and if not, then there must be a valid justification. The projected dates for initiation of services and anticipated length, duration, and frequency of the services. 7, the identification of the service coordinator. Okay, and typically with the regional center, that person will be deemed the service coordinator, and a lot of times when you're dealing with a local education agency, it's the person who's providing the primary service, like a speech therapist, a physical therapist, and so on. And last, the steps to be taken to support the transition of the toddler with the disability to preschool or other appropriate services if applicable. And a lot of times we refer to this as transition planning. So there must be a statement as to the extent of the plan to transition from services from 0 to 2 to school and district run services. A child's IFSP should be rewritten every 12 months. Every 6 months, the IFSP team should reconvene to review the child's progress and make changes to the plan if needed. However, the IFSP team can meet more often if the child needs require so. The parent can call for an IFSP meeting to be held within a reasonable period of time. Okay, so a parent can call a meeting at any time, and any one of the team members can also call a meeting at any time if they feel that there's new information that needs to be added to the plan. So now let's talk about the early intervention services and what that means, and we'll give some examples of those that are included in the statute. Early intervention services are designed to meet the developmental needs of an infant or toddler with a disability in one or more of the following areas. And again, we have those 5 areas of development. We have physical development, cognitive development, communication development, social or emotional development, and adaptive development. So here's a list of early intervention services that could be provided: family counseling, special instruction, speech therapy, audiology services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, psychological services, service coordination, medical services for diagnostic purposes, health services necessary for the child to benefit from other early intervention services, vision services, assistive technology, transportation, and related costs that are necessary to enable a child and their family to receive early intervention services. Remember, this list is not a complete list, as the early intervention services depend on the needs of the child and the family. Next, let's talk about service coordination and what this entails. So what is service coordination? Service coordination means the activities carried out by a service coordinator to assist and enable a child eligible under this part and the child's family to receive the rights, procedural safeguards, and services that are authorized to be provided under the state's early intervention program. So what are service coordinators' core responsibilities? Well, they must coordinate services, all services across agency lines. So this would be an example if a child was receiving services from California Children's Services and the Early Start program, the service coordinator would act across both agency lines in coordinating IFSP meetings and communication. They must act as the single point of contact in helping parents obtain services, make sure that services are delivered in a timely manner. They must continuously seek the appropriate services necessary to benefit the child, and this is an important one. They facilitate meetings with the family and service providers. They inform the family of advocacy services available. They coordinate with medical and health professionals, And they also facilitate a transition plan to preschool services if needed. Okay, these are some of the core responsibilities of service coordination. Here's a list of some of the sources in which we got some of our information. And we thank you for taking the time to listen to the introduction to the Early Start program. Thank you.